We're watching, remembering President Jimmy Carter, our 39th president. This is the beginning of the procession toward the state funeral, where he will lie in state at the rotunda. There's the motorcade right now. A lot of the trappings, a lot of the pomp and circumstance we're seeing today is exactly what Jimmy Carter shunned in life. But in death, he returns to Washington for what is an elaborate national send-off that again is beginning today. It honors also a remarkable legacy. Carter, who died last week at age 100, has just arrived at the U.S. Navy Memorial after being flown from Atlanta to Washington. This ceremony will transfer his casket from the hearse to a horse-drawn caisson for a funeral procession to the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. He's going to lie in state there ahead of a national funeral service at the Washington National Cathedral on Thursday. Thousands are expected to make their way through frigid temperatures to honor the 39th president and his lifetime, really truly lifetime of service, his lifetime of dedication to peace, and his personal commitment to making the world a better place, even if that meant trying to make it a better place himself. Joining us now, NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Noble, senior political reporter at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and MSNBC political contributor Greg Bluestein. He's covered Jimmy Carter's work post-presidency starting in 2009. Back with me is Carnegie Endowment for International Peace senior fellow Aaron David Miller. He worked in the State Department during the Carter administration and is also the author of his very best, Jimmy Carter: A Life, and MSNBC contributor Jonathan Alter. John, you really did write the definitive book on President Carter, came out last year. How would you say, what would he think of this funeral procession, first of all? Would he be into this?
Well, he approved it because he was a bit of a control freak. Yes. And like most presidents,
But this is not
went
him.
over. But he knew exactly what would happen after he died. So that this is all very carefully planned. Actually, about 15 years ago, they drew the initial plans for this. So Jimmy Carter was very complicated. On the one hand, he didn't want them to play Hail to the Chief.
Yeah.
He carried his own bags. Some of that was to convey an image. A lot of it was genuine modesty. So he lives in a modest home in Plains, Georgia. He is a modest man, eats off paper plates. At the same time, he wanted to be recognized and appreciated. And I think he was convinced that assuming the mantle of the presidency, including the pomp and circumstance, was not only appropriate, but that in his case, it was well-deserved.
Is his legacy remembered correctly? Is his presidency remembered correctly?
No. The conventional wisdom is mediocre president, inspirational former president. Anybody ask on the street, that's what they're going to say. And that makes him the most misunderstood president in American history.
How should we understand him?
We should understand him as a political failure. He got beat badly by Ronald Reagan, but as a substantive and often visionary success. He signed 15 major pieces of environmental legislation. People know about the solar panels on the roof of the White House, but that was just almost symbolic. There was a lot behind that. If he had been reelected, we would have moved to electric vehicles in the 1980s. Think about that. You know, he was talking about climate change before anybody else. And I could go down the list, toxic waste cleanup, of the things that he did where he was thinking about the future. So he was a legitimate visionary. And in foreign policy, he was enormously successful. So people just think of the Iran hostage rescue mission, which failed. They think of the fact that the hostages weren't released until just after he left office, even though he negotiated their release. But they forget about these other major accomplishments, which is part of what's being commemorated today.
Aaron, bring us back to that. You were in the State Department during that time. Tell us about the accomplishments.
You know, it's extraordinary. You could count on one hand, I think, the number of diplomatic successful negotiations driven by an American president in the last 50 years. Maybe you could talk Good Friday Agreement, maybe an arms control agreement. But Jimmy Carter produced something quite extraordinary, which frankly is a cut above any of his other foreign policy accomplishments, including the two Panama Canal treaties and his contribution to arms control. At a time when there was literally no incentive no crisis, no opportunity in the Middle East. Jimmy Carter largely powered, I think, by the advice of Brzezinski, but also by his own upbringing. When I interviewed him, he said, and I quote, "Since the age of 3, the Holy Land has figured prominently in the religious aspects of my life." And he really did drive the Egyptian-Israeli peace process to an extraordinary conclusion. I interviewed most everyone at Camp David, and I had my own experience with Clinton at Camp David in July 2000. We talked about that as well. But without Jimmy Carter and his risk readiness, both at Camp David and to take that fateful trip in February, which produced the finishing touches on the what would be the peace treaty, there would have been no peace treaty. And that's an extraordinary testament, not just to Carter's competency. The text, by the way, Camp David went through 23 drafts, which he controlled. It's a testament to his perseverance and his determination.
John, who are we looking at here? This is family.
Well, that's Jeff Carter right there. That's Jimmy Carter's third son. He had 3 sons and Amy, who came along 13 years after Jeff, and the other 2 sons are Jack Carter and Chip Carter, and that the entire family and the grandchildren, a close family, took family vacations together where Jimmy Carter would insist that everybody be prompt, and when the bus left, it left, and if you didn't catch it, you were left behind. There was only one person who got an exemption from that, and that was Rosalind Carter. He was a woodworker, and he made her a plaque that entitled her to be late, and she said it was the best present that she ever received. But you also have, you can see in the crowd there, in addition to family members, there's some people from the Carter Center. The chair of the board of the Carter Center is Jason Carter, Jimmy's grandson, who was a Peace Corps veteran and former candidate for governor of Georgia. Very impressive heir to Carter's responsibilities at the Carter Center. And I think the other thing to keep in mind about Carter's circle, when Jimmy and Rosalind Carter celebrated their 75th wedding anniversary, my wife, Emily, and I went to Plains, and we were expecting it to be like one of these big Clinton or Obama parties, just jammed with celebrities. So Garth Brooks was there, Nancy Pelosi came, the Clintons came, to the shock of everybody since they hadn't had a good relationship with the Clintons, and everybody else were normal people with normal occupations who were friends of theirs from Plains, Georgia. And this tells you something about him.
A testament to who he was and what he valued.